Hello everybody, it's me again, it's your boy, Mr. Wrinkly Shirt, and I am here to talk to you guys about what I did this weekend. Yes, that's right, I actually left my apartment, I went outside into the magical world of weebs and wonders that is Anime North 2023. For those of you who don't know, Anime North is a convention here in Canada, which is one of, if not the largest anime and manga conventions in Canada, and it is a great place for fans of horror manga to find just a little bit of everything. As horror manga has gotten more popular over the years, it has had a lot more representation at these conventions, and I want to take a little bit of time to talk about what I picked up there this year, kind of what I look for when I go there, what the overall approach is to the convention, and that'll be kind of the first part of this video. And I also want to talk about Anime Norths of the past and some of the really amazing finds that I have managed to pull out of this convention, especially back before horror manga was quite so popular. So right off the bat, for those of you who don't know what Anime North is, it is a huge convention. It takes place at the Toronto Congress Centre here in Toronto, Ontario, and it spans to multiple buildings on that property, and it also expands to hotels that are in the nearby area, and even some hotels that are quite far away. It expands into like kind of other sub-convention categories like Yaoi North and Dolls North, and all sorts of these little like connected fringe conventions that are kind of part of the overall convention that you get into with your access badge. But it is all about the vendors. There are a huge range of vendors in the dealer's hall of people selling manga,
ghetto, full of magazines, full clips, and heavy metal when the smoke settles. I'm just looking for
selling snacks and candies,
big yellow, it's 6-inch stilettos, Dr.
selling collectible figurines,
Near hating, your bitch is hyperventilating, hoping that we penetrating. You get snating, cause I never been to Satan, but hardcore administrating, gangbang affiliating.
just a really wide range of really awesome stuff. There's also an artist alley of independent artists that have tables set up that sell prints and stickers and fan art, original characters, all sorts of different things. There are food trucks where you can get all sorts of good food. There's lots of surrounding restaurants, like Japanese authentic restaurants, where you can get some really, really amazing stuff. There is, of course, the U-Haul rave, where a bunch of weebs just get sweaty and dance around. And a giant joint got passed around and people pouring sake for random folks. And just an overall normal time with a lot of normal people doing normal things at a U-Haul in the back corner of a parking lot randomly in the middle of the night. And it is just a really fun time. It's a really good vibe. There's a lot of cool cosplays. You can honestly go and just sit there and read manga and eat snacks and just watch the cosplayers walk by. It is just a spectacle. I remember my first year there, that was pretty much all I wanted to do. I wanted to eat chicken dango, read the couple of volumes of manga that I had picked up, and just see all of the craziness unfold. I had never seen cosplay before, and it was just a pretty crazy experience. It's like a never-ending parade of just interesting, high-effort outfits. It's just madness. But what I do at Anime North is just look for horror manga. I like all that other stuff, but I'm not primarily there for the panels and for just weebing out. I'm not someone who's interested in, you know, the latest developments in One Piece or whatever other Shonen Jump stuff is going on. I don't even keep up to date on a lot of anime series, though this year my girlfriend and I did watch Steins Gate.
I am mad scientist. It's so cool. Son of a bitch.
which was a lot of fun. The last few years we didn't even really watch a lot of anime before going to Anime North, so it was fun to kind of watch something right before and then see cosplays for it and be able to feel like we were actually involved in the weeb culture for a change. But I used to watch a ton of anime. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of series, so it's not like I'm a total imposter there. But as time has gone on and I've gotten older, I've become a lot more focused on horror and just horror manga specifically. And so I have a bit of tunnel vision when I get there. I just want to find horror manga. I want to find the weird stuff, the good stuff. I want to dig through bins of manga. I want to check out the bargain bins. I want to pick up new series that I've been thinking about that maybe I didn't pick up online, so yeah, I may as well get it while there's a deal and maybe I get some free manga along with it. That's kind of my approach to Anime North. And so first I'm going to talk about what I actually picked up at Anime North this year. So the first thing I got is this. This is the entire series of Happiness. This is a series by Shuzo Oshimi that is the creator of Blood on the Tracks, of Devil Ecstasy, which is a really insane read that is very much not at all like Blood on the Tracks, more of like a hentai comedy horror. It's a weird one. If you like Kago and stuff, you'll like Devil Ecstasy. But Happiness and Blood on the Tracks and his other series like Flowers of Evil and things like that are more of like I would call them like intimate horror. His style of horror is almost putting you too close to the characters, getting too personal with the characters. He does a lot of like uncomfortably close-up detailed drawings of characters' faces during uncomfortable or creepy situations. There's a lot of like romance and like coming of age themes in his stories. Happiness is more of a vampire coming of age story. It's just a nice little gory, bloody vampire, intimate, kind of like awkward tale. I've not read it myself yet, by the way, so this is me kind of going off of what I know about this series. I really, really enjoyed Blood on the Tracks, so I have no doubt that I'm going to enjoy this series. But yeah, picked up all 10 volumes of this, and I'm pretty excited to get into reading them. So the next series I picked up is this. This is the Kurosagi Corpse Delivery Service. This is a series that I've had an interesting relationship with over the years. It has been on my maybe list for a really long time. I'm not sure I would say it's like a straight up horror, though it does delve into that area from time to time. It's kind of like a paranormal investigation, sometimes body horror even, but also slice of life, comedy, kind of lighthearted sort of thing. If you like those kind of ghost stories that are really just kind of like, aw, it's a nice ghost. There's lots of that in here, but there's also some really creepy moments. It's a weird one. I've seen it at conventions for a long time. It was not collected into this omnibus edition until pretty recently, and before it was like 17 volumes or something. There was a lot to buy to get this series. And I would often find it like in the bargain manga tables for like $1 a volume, but they would have just like 5 random volumes. And so I would think, well, I'm not going to pick it up unless I'm going to commit to buying the rest of it, probably at cover price. And so I kind of flipped through some volumes, I read some reviews, and I wasn't quite convinced that it was going to be an amazing series. I heard about people who read it and didn't really like it, and I also heard about people who read it and did like it. But after seeing these omnibus editions, and I was kind of trying to find more manga to buy anyway, because I had some like free volumes that I could pick up because I was already getting 10 copies of another series, so they had like a deal. So I was like, well, I'm gonna pick up like the set of these. There's only 5 omnibuses, and I'll give it a shot. I figure if they're reprinting it this often, and have been reprinting it for so long, and from Dark Horse, who is notorious for not reprinting stuff that people want them to reprint, then it must at least be decent. I don't think they would just keep reprinting something that nobody is buying. So I'm pretty excited to get into this. The last thing I picked up is this kind of omnibus, I guess, collection of Kitaro stories. This is put out by Drawn and Quarterly, who have also been collecting a lot of other Shigeru Mizuki work and a lot of other Kitaro books. They have just a big series of assorted kind of one-off Kitaro tales that you can pick up that are absolutely worth picking up. They're really cheap, they're a lot of fun, they're a good look into the past of kind of what has led to the world of horror manga that we know today. They are mostly not really horror at all. They're kind of like fun yokai stories. They're more similar in nature to like some of the older horror manga like Kazuo Umezu's Cat-Eyed Boy, things that are a little more playful, kind of like for kids and adults. But there is amazingly beautiful background art, very, very painstakingly illustrated images in these. There's like a real special quality to Mizuki's work, and you can really see how those like detailed backgrounds and the juxtaposition of like simple characters against like these lush, detailed, dark forests and things like that have become such a staple in the way current horror manga is drawn. So that is it for this year's pickups. I did a lot of digging around and trying to find some like really amazing deals or some out of print stuff that maybe seemed undervalued, that was just in a dusty corner somewhere. And unfortunately, I didn't find anything really amazing. There was some like weird cool stuff, a lot of like the Hollow Press, Shintaro Kago stuff and that sort of thing. But I've already got all of that, and anyone who's into Kago is probably aware of that stuff and has it already. It was not at all like the anime north of days past, which I will talk about next. I will regale you all with a tale of the first time I ever went to Anime North. This was kind of when I was on my way out of regularly consuming a ton of anime, and I was just getting into horror manga. I think I only owned like a couple of Junji Ito volumes at this time, and I was just getting into the sort of mindset of I want to collect all of the horror manga. I had all the Junji Ito stuff. I was starting to make some of my own horror manga. I wanted more inspiration. I found the more horror manga I owned and the more I could just casually flip through it out of my collection, the easier it was to keep that creativity flowing, keep drawing stuff. So I was just like ravenously looking to get more. I wanted Hino, I wanted Umezu, I wanted Inuki, I wanted all of the artists that were not Junji Ito that I didn't already have. I pretty much had all the Ito, but I was ready for more. It seems as though I was a little bit ahead of the curve at that moment, not to brag or anything, but at that time Junji Ito was becoming very, very popular. A lot of the Viz editions were starting to come out, the hardcover books that really got people into it, like Uzumaki, and you could start to see that the tide was rising, but generally people were not searching for more. They were not investigating the broader world of horror manga. They weren't really looking for all of these old out-of-print books by all these other artists that kind of had their wave back in the 90s and early 2000s when manga was huge and just everything was getting translated. No one was looking for the old Blast books, Hideshi Hino stuff, or the old Dark Horse, School Zone, and things like that. They just wanted more Junji Ito, and that was kind of all they were really thinking about, which it turns out was a great time to go to a really big anime convention, being seemingly the only person there who was actually informed about this stuff, knew kind of what was out there and what existed, what they were worth, and was just ready to spend all weekend just digging and digging and digging. And I will show you guys what I got from that first Anime North and tell you guys how much of a steal I got this stuff for. So the first thing that I managed to score were these. These are all 3 volumes of Octopus Girl. There is a fourth volume that was never translated, but these are the only three you can actually get in English. And these were put out by Dark Horse ages ago. They've long since been out of print. And at the time I got these, they were already in the range of like $30 to $70 depending on the volume. I think volume 3 was the most expensive one, volume 2 not so much, but volume 1 was also like $50. So when I saw these for sale in a manga vendor's library at Anime North that was doing a deal where you didn't even have to pay cover price for stuff, that already would have been a steal, but they were actually selling manga by weight. The way it worked was you would just grab as much manga as you wanted, you would put it on a scale at the checkout, and depending on what the weight of the manga was, they would just multiply that by something, and you would just pay whatever it was. And usually it worked out to like $5 to maybe $10 per manga volume. Like big omnibuses were like 10 bucks, but something like this was like $5 a book. And I bought so much stuff from them. These were among them, so I paid like $5 for these, and at the time these were already expensive, and I mean the rest is history. You guys know how hard it is to get old horror manga volumes like this now. It was an absolute crazy steal, and I managed to save a lot of money. The next thing I managed to get was School Zone. I actually didn't get all 3 of these, I only got 2 of them, and I can't remember which 2 I got. But I remember they were the 2 most expensive ones at the time. When I got back to the hotel, I just looked everything up to see how well I made out, and I was floored. I thought they'd be like maybe a little bit higher than cover, so I got like a good deal by getting them for like $5 each. But it turned out they were like, you know, $50 to $100 for some of these volumes. Some of them were still not too crazy. I think like volume 1 was like 20 bucks or something at the time, but volume 3 in particular I definitely picked up there, and it was very expensive at the time. So this is just another crazy deal. I literally just paid by weight to get these. The next thing I got was all 3 volumes of Presents by Kanako Inuki. These are pretty much in the same boat as School Zone, but at the time they were even rarer. Volume 1 was not particularly expensive. You could get it online for like $15, but Volume 2 and 3, even then, were ranging from $40 to $150, and I picked them up for like $5. It was completely insane. I didn't know how much of a deal I was getting until I looked them up later, and I was just floored. The next things I got were various Hideshi Hino books. I also got the Art of Hideshi Hino hardcover, but I also picked these up, and I believe I got even a couple volumes of the Hino horror series, though there's 14 of them. I can't remember which ones I got. I know there were some obscure ones. They weren't like the first 2 volumes, which are on the cheaper side of things. They were some of like the weird ones that are really tricky to track down. But I definitely got these there as well. And again, I just paid by weight. At the time, it's funny to think back on it, these were not even that rare back then. They were a good deal. I paid like $5 for each of them, and online you would have to pay like $15 to maybe $30 to get these. And if you really waited, you could find them even for like, you know, $15 each, maybe even less online. Which is hilarious now because these are super expensive these days. Hopefully they get a reprint, especially Hell Baby. It's like a classic Hideshi Hino book. But at the time they were a little bit of a deal, but they have aged like a fine wine. These are super expensive now. And last but not least, I picked up all 3 volumes of Scary Book. These at the time were ranging from a little bit marked up to very difficult to find. I can't even remember which ones were the expensive ones back then. I know one of them was like, you know, $20, $30, and one of them was already like $70 to $100 back then. And these are all in Canadian dollar prices, by the way, not American. But at the time, again, I just picked these up for like $5. It was a crazy, crazy deal. I just paid by weight, and I didn't even know how crazy the deal was until I checked them out later. So I lied. The actual last but not least was this. This was from a different vendor, and they were selling books at cover price, so generally it wasn't like a deal. If you bought a lot of manga, you would get some free ones. It was the same vendor I was picking stuff up from this year that I was just talking about. But the difference was no one had picked through their stuff yet. So even though it was listed at the full cover price, there was a lot of stuff in there that was out of print, and the prices had inflated quite a bit, and they were still selling them for the cover price. This book in particular at that time was well over $100 already, and they had it listed for whatever the cover price on this is. This is $30 Canadian, which is also hilarious that a book this big would be $30 Canadian then. Nowadays this would be like $40 plus. But I picked it up for 30 bucks and it was a crazy deal. They didn't have volume 1, unfortunately, but even getting volume 2 was an incredible steal, and all these pickups really helped jumpstart my horror manga collection. So that about sums up my year 1 pickups. There were a few other odds and ends, books that are not particularly good or have not particularly risen in value. They're just nothing to really write home about. Just new releases that came out at the time, like Portus and like things like that just kind of suck, that I picked up just because they're horror. But these were like the real steals, the treasure that I was digging for. And this is not to gloat about the value of like manga that I own. I've had comments in the past about, you know, why do you talk so much about the price of things, which I might actually make an entire video about, because I find the sort of financial aspect of collecting anything to be really interesting and something that is inevitable to talk about. But this is more to talk about how, with patience and some perseverance and creativity, you do not have to pay what people are asking for this stuff. If you think it's stupid that one of these volumes is worth $100, you can actually bring that price down just by putting in time, just by checking every day for new eBay listings, by going on like Abe Books, or going to conventions like this, or checking out yard sales, looking for deals at your local bookstore, asking to see what they've got in the basement. That is kind of like the fun part of collecting, is not just having a big bank account and then putting your bank account on a shelf for everybody to see, but more to try to gain things that you're really interested in and that might be quite expensive, but for way less money than it costs to get them. And it's kind of crazy to say, but horror manga is getting to that point where there is a lot of really inexpensive, accessible, newly printed stuff because it is so popular, but that fact in itself also means that a lot of old stuff is only going to become more expensive as more new stuff comes out, as the sort of gap between the new and the old becomes more pronounced, and as that audience for this material grows and grows and grows and the demand increases. So this is just to kind of give you guys hope for finding some of this stuff. I don't find as much of this at conventions nowadays, but you can still find these kinds of deals online and at smaller conventions, smaller bookstores. This is just one example of a place that is cleaned out, but there is a lot out there still. This is still a very, very niche market, a very niche kind of interest. So keep your eyes peeled and you can find some pretty crazy stuff. But that about sums up this video, guys. I hope you found this interesting. Let me know what you guys think about Anime North. Have you ever gone there? Would you ever like to go there? Do you have a big anime convention in your area? And which one is it? Have you been there? Have you found anything cool? Let me know. I'm really interested to hear about it. And that's it for now. I will see you guys in the next video.